Welcome to another Behind Enemy Lines. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Chris Clark, football insider for Gamecock Central on 3, our on 3 partner. Chris, welcome. This is going to be kind of cool. It's the second time, 2 years in a row, OU, South Carolina have played. SEC. This is all new to us. It's all new to us. Like, this is a whole brand new thing here. This whole SEC travel thing. This is, I think, the furthest I've ever traveled. Well, the furthest travel Oklahoma's ever had in my time covering a conference game. And we did West Virginia, mind you.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to figure out if that's longer. I don't think it is. I believe South Carolina is further. I don't want to.
Couldn't tell you. I don't want to go on record for sure because
Me either,
I'll admit I have not ever been from Oklahoma to West Virginia. But I have been from South Carolina to Oklahoma.
It's a distance.
It is a distance. Definitely a fly trip, definitely a plane trip. We made it last year. Actually, we stayed in Oklahoma, stayed in Norman for the game. Had an amazing time. That's been one of the cool parts of this SEC, expansion that's been underway is being able to go out and see some different places. I've been to every SEC stadium now except for Texas. I've been, to Austin. I've been around the stadium. I haven't been to a game there, but yeah, Oklahoma was awesome, man. I mean, I love Norman. I love, the stadium, the atmosphere, all the history around it. It was a blast. So hopefully all the Oklahoma fans coming into Columbia, same deal. Hopefully they have a really good time too, visiting the Palmetto State.
So I guess my question is you say you loved it. How surprising was it for you that when you got there? Because I think a lot of people envision Oklahoma and the University of Oklahoma. They're like, it's got to be out in the middle of nowhere. And they get there and they're like, what? It's in a metro of almost 2 million people. What in the world? Was that surprising to you?
Yeah, I wasn't. I did have some people tell me beforehand, like, hey, there's maybe not. They definitely didn't paint the picture of like some metropolis, right? And we actually one of my regrets on the trip is we didn't go into Oklahoma City. We were just kind of didn't have as much time, and we kind of spent more of our time of like, all right, we're in Norman. Let's do Norman. Let's go see the campus. Let's go see the downtown. And we really, really enjoyed all that. So, in some ways it was kind of what I expected because, I was expecting kind of a college town, but in other ways, some people kind of paint the picture of like being out in the middle of nowhere, and that wasn't really the case. There were some cool things to do around. Like I said, the downtown was awesome. The area around the stadium was really cool. Got to check out some of the tailgating and things like that. And we stayed in Norman, stayed at an Airbnb in Norman as opposed to staying, outside somewhere and driving in. So got to have, I think, a good bit of the experience. So yeah, I mean, some of these places you don't really know what to expect. And, but it was really cool. It was really cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. A lot of people usually stay downtown Oklahoma City when I talk to them. Like, yeah, we just stayed downtown Oklahoma City, which is what I always recommend because it's a really fun place to stay. Like, you've got Bricktown, you got Uptown, you got Midtown. There's all these little districts and cool places to go hang out and party. But yeah, I mean, and I don't think the NBA had tipped off whenever you guys came into town because everybody always wants to go to a Thunder game when they get here because the atmosphere is electric at those places. It's crazy. But
we did get to go to, oh man, I'm forgetting the name. There was a place downtown where, I mean, it's always packed. There's probably a bunch of those, but it's this really somewhere downtown, not on the corner, but we went there after the game. It was packed, really good food, and the name is completely escaping me.
Neighborhood Jam?
What was it called?
Neighborhood Jam?
No, not Neighborhood Jam. I'll think of it later and shoot you a text. But yeah, it was really cool though. We got to hit a bunch of the spots around there, throughout the weekend and then after the game. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm glad. Does it fit in the SEC? I guess that's the one thing I always ask everybody. Y'all feel it's a fit? Does Oklahoma fit in the SEC in your mind? Like as far as the atmosphere goes?
Yeah, I think the atmosphere was great.
I
It
would
was
too
fun.
if I got up 21-0 in the first 5 minutes of the game. Hey.
No, I mean, look, you go there. I mean, is it a different feel? I mean, yeah, but that might be honestly because like it was my first time there, right? If you go to Georgia or Florida, like I went to Alabama, it was actually the last time I'd been to Alabama last year too. And does Alabama feel more like a like an SEC place? I mean, yeah, but that's because it's in the South.
Yeah.
Like the campus for Alabama and Oklahoma, those campuses, they're a good bit different. Um, so I think there's part of like a getting used to it. If you told
Mm,
me, hey, Oklahoma's still in the Big 12, I would believe that too, right? But I think the atmosphere with the fan base, the fan support, it certainly felt like SEC to me, right? And
right.
you're right, that game very early, South Carolina was able to get up. There was kind of a shock throughout the stadium, I think, but great atmosphere. And then, man, I mean, you go around as soon as you're right on one of the sides of the stadium, you see all the championships up, on the side of the stadium. And then you go in or you go around and they've got kind of the Heisman Plaza there. And you're like, I mean,
At
it
those
felt like
things.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of them there. And so it feels like big time football. And I mean,
Mm,
heck, man, these days, you associate big time football with the SEC. So I
yeah.
certainly think it fits. And I think it's cool to have them in the conference for sure.
Well, that's really cool. I'm always interested because that's just such a, we don't really know what SEC feels like, so we just ask everybody else, like, because I think we went to LSU last year, Ole
Yep.
Miss, Auburn, which I think Auburn was my favorite trip. I liked Ole Miss, but Auburn was by far my favorite trip. I loved
Really? Yeah.
Auburn was neat, man. I enjoyed the heck out of that place.
Yeah.
Trying to think where else did we go last year? I can't honestly remember. Tennessee
Yeah.
was a home game.
Yeah.
South Carolina was a home game. Alabama was a home game. Yeah, and then Texas is obviously the one. So yeah, those were the ones we went to last year, the three. So yeah, it's always different. Like this year was one we looked forward to just because South Carolina sandstorm. I mean, who doesn't want to see that in person, right? It's kind of cool. Just I want to see. Actually I'm tight with the Stogners, so obviously
Yeah.
had Austin on just to talk about both sides
Yeah.
of the programs, and he talked about just the entrances and how different they were.
They are.
Oklahoma's just kind of leads up to the we're Oklahoma. Look at all of our titles and Heisman's and conference titles. Look at us. South Carolina is like very, very unique
Hmm.
with the was it 2000 Leagues Under the Sea or something like that?
Yeah. The
Entrance
2001. Yep.
2001, yeah. The Odyssey Space Odyssey. Or is it Space
Yep.
Odyssey? Yeah.
Space Odyssey. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like it's that's freaking cool, man. Like, and that's like it's like a Virginia Tech deal, like that and Virginia Tech when they do the entrance, you're like, okay, like those are unique in college football, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, they
Very
are.
unique.
Well, and I think, at some point, and I don't have the, future schedule right in front of me that the SEC just released recently, so I'm not even sure when the next time Oklahoma's coming back here is, but hopefully at some point there'll be an opportunity for you guys to check out a night game because, there have been some really cool day game atmospheres in Columbia over the years, but
Yeah, 11 a.m. Ugh.
yeah, it's a little night games are a different animal. It's even more keyed up. There's, the light show that they've added and stuff like that. And they've even added some things this year to, put graphics on the field and things like that that are really, really cool. But it should still be fun. Columbia is uh a different atmosphere, different place than a lot of the other SEC programs, and the stadium's a little bit off campus, actually. And so one of the
Mhm.
things that they're in process of doing is trying to, and this will be kind of sometime down the road, but they're talking about building an entertainment district around the stadium.
Mhm.
There's a lot of land around there, but that's a little bit more down the road, and that's kind of one of the advantages of having a stadium that's off campus. But a lot of places, like a lot of the schools you named. I mean, thinking about Alabama last year, you're on campus and then boom, you're at the stadium. That's how a lot of them are. It's a little bit away from campus, which is a different kind of vibe, different kind of feel. But the tailgating's fun for sure. And then there's definitely some areas in Columbia that, fans can go hit, Oklahoma fans can go hit, throughout the weekend leading up to the game.
Is the state fair going on right
State
now?
fair is going on. Yep.
That'll be 2 weeks in a row. OU's played in the middle of a state fair. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I can't remember, as far as the time, traffic will, get out there early. That's what I'll say. Traffic will, be a thing. It'll be a factor. So
Mhm.
get out to your tailgate spot early. Definitely recommend going out and checking out the state fair. I heard Brent Venables said he has not been to the South Carolina State Fair, which is kind of crazy. I mean, it's not like he coached here in Columbia, but he was at Clemson. I figured at some point maybe he would have made it down. But then on the other hand, when it's going on, it's during the football season. Probably doesn't have time to drive a couple hours from Clemson down to
He,
Columbia to go check out the state fair in the middle of a football
he's
season.
he is a foot. I'm trying to think. I've known Brent since I was 16 years old, probably.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, so he and I go pretty far back. I'll say this about him. Love the man, always will. He has always treated me and my family with just the most respect and
Hmm.
just he's kind of befriended my family a little bit, to be honest. But I, you know, he's all football all the time. There's no non-football discussions. That dude he's wired for football and family,
Yep.
and that is it.
Yep.
That is what he is. And you know what? That's his personality.
Yeah.
That's
For
just who
sure.
he is.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's not a lot of outside of his family stuff. He's going to be doing football stuff, and that's
Hmm.
just what he is. Like if you're talking to him, it's family and football. How's your
Hmm.
family? Blah blah blah. Let's talk football. Like that's just what he is,
Yep.
and that's his makeup, and that's what makes him a great DC too, though. So because he's always wired for, you know, what's my next move.
Yeah.
So particularly on the football field, on the defensive side of the ball, head coach is, it's been good so far this year. Last year,
Yes.
not so much. Um, the first year, not so much. And I don't think the first year anybody really blames him because of all the transfers. But yeah, it's been an up and down, and people are getting kind of irritated. The crazy part is, and I have to ask you about this because you go to LSU, and I think y'all run for South Carolina. I think they run for close to 200 yards against
Yeah.
LSU. And they let go Ronnie Teasley.
Hmm.
They bring in, I think the tight end coach is now doing the offensive line, correct?
That's
Doing
right.
both. And who'd they move to the tight end coach? Because Sean Elliott's now the tight end coach, right?
Yeah. So
Or
Sean Elliott.
O-line coach, excuse me. He was the tight end coach.
That's right. So Sean Elliott's got a background at South Carolina. He's from Camden in the state of South Carolina. Played at
Mm.
App State, coached at App State. He was on staff when App State upset Michigan, that big upset years ago. He was on staff there. He was on staff for both Steve Spurrier and a year of Will Muschamp as the offensive line coach and run game coordinator.
Mm.
And so he's got a long background. Then, of course, he went to Georgia State. He was the head coach there from 2017 to 2023. Family actually stayed in Columbia. He would go back and forth a lot between Atlanta and Columbia, and came back here to South Carolina to be the tight ends coach. South Carolina did not have an opening at the time for offensive line coach, so Shane Beamer wanted to bring him back, did that. And so, and I'll touch on the Lonnie Teasley being dismissed too, but when that happened, there was a natural move to make on the staff of, okay, well, who do you have to plug in? They've got Greg Adkins, who's a veteran O-line coach who actually was the O-line coach here before moving off the field. But Elliott's a guy who has, a lot of experience as an offensive line coach. So that was an obvious move to make. He'll still have some involvement with the tight ends when it carries over, in terms of blocking schemes and things like that up front. But they've moved Ben Burris, who's a graduate of the University of South Carolina, who spent some time in the NFL, has worked with Mike Shula before with the Carolina Panthers. They've shifted him over from a passing game specialist, kind of an off the field guy who's up in the box on Saturdays, to handling the tight ends. So Right now, Elliott's the interim O-line coach, and I think you bring up a good point because on one hand, outside looking in, or even if you're kind of here, you go, all right, well, man, South Carolina had their best rushing performance of the season. If you take out sacks, Brandon, they actually rushed for like 250 yards,
Wow.
in the game. They had a 72-yard touchdown run, but they also got a bunch of other chunk runs. Like it was their best performance of the year, and it was their best performance of the year against an LSU defense that's been pretty stingy against the run. Ole Miss put up 166 on them, but Florida had like 79 yards, and then their other opponents had less than that. And it was on the road, so they've been really good in that regard. South Carolina was able to put together some things, but when you look at it, you go, okay, they had their best rushing performance. The bigger issue, though, has been that that group as a whole has not taken that next step. Shane Beamer this offseason outlined, like, hey, what's the position group or the players that you think need to take a step forward? And he kind of put the offensive line on notice. His, I think, exact quote was, it's time for those guys to step up. Through the first 6 games, we haven't seen that. And a lot of it has been procedural stuff. Like they've had 4, 5, 6 snap infraction penalties. I don't remember ever seeing that many. Illegal
Yeah.
snap infractions. They've been plagued with false starts, procedural penalties, and then the protection has not been near good enough. You've got one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the country in Lenora Sellers, but they haven't been able to adequately protect them. That's resulted in a lot of big negative plays. They've just been behind the chains a lot. And so I think Shane Beamer looked at it and said, look, yeah, we made some strides, but his feeling is we need to be a lot better here. And a lot of it, frankly, starts with the procedural stuff. So he just thought that a different voice may help this group going forward. They're sitting there at 3-3. The Vandy game, Lenore Sellers missed over a half of that game. He was out the entire second half. But the interesting thing is the games against LSU and Ole Miss were winnable games.
Hmm.
They really were. They didn't play particularly well in either, but you can't really shake the feeling that if they could have just eliminated some of these self-inflicted wounds that they've had, the penalties, this could be a team sitting there at 5-1. They've just been so inconsistent offensively, and a lot of that started up front. And so that's why they're in the position that they're in, making a midseason coaching change, which is Shane Beamer's first midseason coaching change that he's made as head coach here.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because Oklahoma, on the flip side, has struggled running the ball this year. Last year, running the ball, even in a 6-7 season, that was their strength, was running the ball. They could run the ball fairly decent. They could not pass the ball well last year.
Hmm.
This year, passing game, pretty good.
Yep.
John Mateer, pretty good at it, right? The quarterback play, pretty good. Last week was awful, but and we'll get into that. That's going to be an interesting deal. Is with Shane Beamer, and obviously we know Shane very, very well.
Yeah.
Um, do you think he looked at, okay, Oklahoma's coming to town. They have the best defensive front collectively in college football right now, and most people think.
Yes.
Got to get that fixed before they come to town.
Yeah.
Was that why that move was made? Like here and the now, like if you don't have it fixed against Oklahoma and almost every, like even Texas, I mean, outside of the missed tackles, like OU doesn't just miss tackles in space or miss tackles in the backfield.
Hmm.
Um, they probably win that game against Texas. That's the crazy part. Like the chunk plays that they gave up, they won the line of scrimmage. They
Sure.
pushed Texas back the whole time. They were wrapping Wisner up in the backfield, and then he would just slip through and take off because there was nobody there at the second level because the guys at the second level are supposed to be there were the ones missing the tackles in the backfield.
Right.
So there's a lot of that going on, and obviously you have a mobile guy that can break tackles in Lenore Sellers, right? Um, I was that the reason just Oklahoma's coming to town, that defensive front. Let's fix this now before it gets really even more magnified.
I think so. Yes and no, in that you're halfway through the season.
Hmm.
You kind of know you have a better, game one, game two is game one and game two. You see some things that concern you, but you leave some time to see if there's some progression. And after 6 games, that progression wasn't there.
Hmm.
I think it's a move that's probably made regardless of who's on the schedule
Gotcha.
remaining. Now, is it in the back of your mind that, okay, we play Oklahoma, we put, and
Top and
if you're
sacks
Shane
and all
Beamer,
that.
you
Yeah.
got, yeah, you
Tackles for
got
losses.
Oklahoma, but then you go to Ole Miss,
Hmm.
you go to Texas A&M, who's also really good up front. You play Clemson at the end of the year. Like you've got to make some strides. But I think if they played, a bunch of FCS teams the remainder of the season, he would probably be thinking the same thing. And to kind of explain it how Beamer explained it, he watched the game tape on his iPad on the plane on the way back from Baton Rouge, and it wasn't just that game, right? But that game kind of solidified some things that he had been seeing this season and even really the past couple years, and that we haven't made the strides. He feels like this offensive line should be performing and this offense should be performing better than it has performed. And I think he deemed that they needed to change there. Now, again, is Oklahoma coming to town? Like he didn't make the change during the bye week before LSU, right? But I think the LSU game just solidified it because again, they had 4 or 5 false starts on the offensive line that were spread out. It wasn't just one guy, it was multiple guys. They had the snap infraction penalty. They had a bunch of issues that were still present in that game that he, frankly, I think was tired of seeing. And so the issue going forward is number one, it's hard to be really good up front in this league when you're playing teams like Oklahoma,
Hmm.
regardless. The really good offensive lines are going to struggle against Oklahoma. But to go back to what I said earlier, can you just as a baseline, like, I mean, it's something Beamer told the team after the LSU game. Before we kick another team's butt, we have to stop kicking our own. And they have done a great job of kicking
That's a
their own
shame.
butt for a lot of the season, and you just get the sense of if you could stop going backwards and having all these penalties that put you behind the chains, you're going to have a better chance. They've still been competitive. They were in the game in the fourth quarter. They were leading in the fourth quarter against Missouri. They had an opportunity in the fourth quarter multiple times to go score against LSU and take the lead and maybe go win that game, and they end up losing by 10. Point is, Sean Elliott, with the track record he has, he's a good coach. He's not going to work miracles. And, Shane Beamer pointed it out yesterday during his press conference. Oklahoma's going to have some tackles for loss in this game. They're going to have some plays they're going to be some ugly runs in this game. But can you get up off the mat, and go out there and try to execute a little bit better? It's a challenge against these guys, man. I've watched Brent Venables' defenses for a long time, with him being at South Carolina's chief rival for years.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for what he does. He's a brilliant coach. The way they play defensively, the stuff they do. I mean, that's what Beamer pointed out yesterday. Like they do so much on defense that you have a hard time even figuring out what it is they're doing, or what they're going to call. And they have great defensive calls. He schemes it up so well, and then he has his guys take on his personality. They play, with their hair on fire. They really do.
Hmm.
He's so good too. I mean, one thing I've noticed, he's so good at taking away what a team does best. You know,
Hmm.
I remember when they played Auburn at Clemson one year, he had gotten tipped off that they were going to run the wing tee, and Venables literally Googled how to stop the wing tee, and they completely shut it down. Georgia Tech figured out how to completely stop the triple option when Paul Johnson was there. I mean, there's so many examples, and so it makes it really, really tough. And you're right. I mean, you're looking at Oklahoma, their defensive front's their strength. South Carolina, their weakness has been up front. And so that's something that you're not going to get it corrected, so to
Right.
speak, but you got to be better than you have been for sure.
On the flip side, and I'll get the Roswell phase on in the run game here in a minute, but I want to get to the flip side because just talking trenches here. Oklahoma's just not very good on the offensive front. They're just not. Like they're young and they're injured. Once again, OU is
Hmm.
injured. Six of their top 11 guys either injured, playing with like one leg, essentially, like
Hmm.
one good leg, um, or just not playing at all. I mean, they're the most cursed offensive line team the last two seasons I have ever seen in my freaking life. I can't. But it's getting bad, like to the point where, and they got to play the young guys. And this is for the South Carolina people watching. They have to play the young guys. They're starting Michael Fasusi, 5-star, the number one offensive tackle last year in the country. He's been put on skates some this year. Colin Simmons made him look like his you know what a couple of times last weekend. Um, and guess what? He gets Dylan Stewart and Brian Thomas Jr. this week.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenge. Yeah. No, those guys have been really good. Last year, I mean, let's go back to last year. I mean, obviously, you know better than anyone, way better than me.
Kennard, my God.
Yeah, Oklahoma's offensive line struggled, and 9 sacks in that game. Carolina was really good last year, not only with Stewart, with Kennard, who just, won the Nagurski, no big deal.
Mhm.
And then their defensive tackles inside, their strength was rushing the passer. So
Yes.
if you were in third and longs against South Carolina, it was a good luck situation. There was one play last year against Oklahoma. I think it was a maybe a fourth down when Oklahoma had to go for it late. And you got the sense of like, okay, Kennard's going to be singled up against the left tackle here. You're like, this is probably going to be a sack. And it was, I mean, this year they lost not only Kennard, but they lost really their top four defensive tackles again, where they were really good. TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway, really good rushing the passer. They've been solid up front. They're a little different though. They're a little bit more built to stop the run inside. But
Mhm.
Brian Thomas Jr. is a guy, his dad played Brian Thomas Sr. years for the Jets, was a really good pass rusher, and he kind of has some of that same juice. Like he has played very well as a pass rusher. And then Dylan Stewart can do Dylan Stewart things. He can not only rush the passer, but he can wreck you in the run game too if you're not careful. He did it some against LSU. So, look, Oklahoma, the way I've been telling everybody, the way I've kind of viewed this game is, they're still really good on defense, probably even better than they were last year, but they're not inept this year on offense. That team that played
Yeah.
South Carolina last year was just not a good offensive team. This year they have quality on offense.
Mhm.
I'm sure it helps that they don't have their top five receivers out, right?
Yeah, that
And
that
they,
was that was miserable last year to
that
watch.
was
It was,
miserable.
yeah,
And
to
then
watch.
they have, you know, I think a sharp OC and John Mateer, right? So they can hurt you offensively. But I think for South Carolina, that's another battle that they're circling is that they have got to find some ways to wreak their own havoc and win up front and force some mistakes and get Oklahoma behind the chains too. If they're going to win this game, they're going to have to do it by letting their defense win the day and then just try to be opportunistic. Offensively, can you get good field position? Can you get a turnover where you're, already knocking on the door of the red zone or scoring, and then just go hit a couple plays here and there? Nobody's going into this game saying, "Well, I think South Carolina can score 30 points against Oklahoma." We haven't seen that this year from South Carolina. We certainly haven't seen any indications that Oklahoma's on the verge of giving that up to this team. But I think that's certainly a battle that both sides have circled. And they said, Oklahoma's saying we got to try to stave off Brian Thomas Jr. and Dylan Stewart. And for South Carolina, they're saying this is a battle that we've got to make sure that we own up front.
So within the backside of y'all's defense, I believe it's Peyton Williams. Kilgore feels like I feel like his. How many years has he been there? By the way,
This is only year 3.
why does
Yeah.
it feel like it's like
He's started from day one, so it kind of seems like he's been there a while.
yeah, man, I feel like, man, I've been seeing that dude back there since Spurrier's been playing. How many years of eligibility this guy got? Man, that
Yeah,
gum.
just year 3. Crazy. So
Goodness gracious. Yeah, and then obviously DQ Smith, man. Like, would you I think, you think DQ's the leader of that team on the back end? or would you say
Yeah, I
Peyton
mean, he's
Williams?
someone the Shane Beamer's identified as such. Carolina's lost a couple guys off of last year's defense. You know, OD Fortune, one of their corners, and then a big one is Nicky Minori. You know, who
Mm.
was just an eraser back there and could play the pass. You could clean up in the run game. You know, he had the pick six against Oklahoma last year, was a second round pick for the Seahawks. That's been, I think, a big loss on the back end because he was just kind of a unicorn. He could do so many things for you. You know,
Yeah,
put him up in the box, cover a receiver one on one, cover a tight end. He could do all of it. And so yeah, Peyton Williams has stepped in. They've rotated a few guys in at safety. Peyton Williams had a big pick last week against LSU. So it's a different type of defense, I think. But they've got a little bit more depth this year at corner. They've had some guys banged up at times. But yeah, I'd say DQ is one of their guys that they count on as a leader because he's been around. He started since he's a freshman. He's a fourth year senior this year. He's one of the guys that they certainly look to defensively. But man, they lost a lot of leadership off of last year's team. Every team captain from last year except Lenore Sellers off of last year's team is gone. And a bunch of those guys, you know, leaders up front on the D line. You had a guy like Nicky. You had linebackers. You know, they had a team captain in Debo Williams at linebacker. So they've lost a lot off that defense, but they've still been pretty good. You know, I think we all came
Mhm.
in thinking South Carolina's offense would maybe have to carry this team more this year, but it's still, frankly, been the defense and the special teams that have kind of carried them, which is frankly a little bit more like last year's team.
Do, do you think they're stronger in the passing game or the run game overall as far as
Oh,
defense goes?
man, that's a good question. You know, it's hard to say because from game to game, it's kind of been inconsistent on that front. Like they were really good in game one against Virginia Tech, a Virginia Tech team that obviously didn't turn out to be very good. Their problem in that game was they gave up some explosives down the field just on like one-on-one balls.
Hmm.
Against LSU last week, LSU's run game has not been very good, and they still gave up too many yards, you know, against the run. They gave up some chunk plays. They've given up some explosives in the run game. I'd say it's kind of balanced, you know, between game to game. It's kind of hard to say. I do think one thing about this defense is that they do a good job of forcing turnovers. They're almost too overly reliant on turnovers. I'm not someone who thinks his turnovers is gifts. I think you earn them. They had three against LSU last week. They had a couple picks. One of them was, I mean, deep in the red zone. Garrett Nussmeier threw a pick. Great defensive play. Another one, they were going in to score, and South Carolina punched the ball out basically on the goal line, you know, or at the 1 yard line and got the ball back there. So they have allowed, you know, some yards for sure, but they've done a good job in a lot of instances in forcing field goals and getting turnovers. And that's kind of been the hallmark when they've played well defensively under Clayton White, their defensive coordinator, and under Shane Beamer. They've been teams that have been really adept at getting turnovers. And so I obviously think that's a big key this weekend, too.
Do you know where South Carolina is ranked in the turnover gained or, the turnover margin? I was trying to find it earlier and I couldn't, it's not pulling up on NCAA. That just says no stats available today, right now. I don't
Oh, they
know.
decided to get rid of all the stats today?
I don't know if dude, it just says no stats available. I've looked at everything. The individuals are up, but not the team ones. It's really weird. I think they're
Yeah, they,
safe.
they are down today. No, I don't actually have that. You know, I would imagine though that, you know, they've done a pretty good job forcing turnovers, and actually they have been better than you would think given their offensive production at not turning the football over
Hmm.
offensively. Like they have not been that bad in that category. Because that's been a problem in the Beamer era is some years you look at it and go, man, there's been too many turnovers, too many picks, too many fumbles. They've been better this year. Their biggest issue offensively, like I said, has just been too many negative plays, too many sacks, too many penalties that get you, okay, now we're 1st and 15. Now we're 2nd and 20, whatever. That's been the bigger issue for them.
So I'm trying to look at, I guess Lenore Sellers has been sacked 19 times. I did not realize that, man.
Hmm
I
Yeah.
and I'm pulling up John Mateer right now to see how many times he's been sacked this year. Okay, I'm over here crapping on OU's O line, and I'm gonna look like a fool, complete fool right now. OU has given up 9 sacks this year.
It's not bad.
Like well, I mean, I don't think that's correct all the way around, but yeah, the it's just that's just the way. Um, it's crazy. I didn't realize that. It feels like it's been way more than that, man. So much more than that.
Yeah, I think with South Carolina, when you have as many issues as they've had offensively, I feel like play callings, y'all probably see this, like it's always the catch-all. They're not calling the right plays. In
Hmm.
some instances, that may very well be correct. I think it has been at times. But when you have this many struggles on offense, it's not just one thing. Like you look at the run game. Sometimes it's an offensive line missing a block or, missing an assignment. But sometimes it's a tight end. Sometimes it's the back. You go back and look at a lot of their run plays. Sometimes it's been, you look at the tape and go, running back missed the hole here. You got to cut this back. You got to go here. You got to go there. In the passing game, they've had the same kind of combination, right? Sometimes an offensive tackle thinks he has help from a tight end or back and he doesn't, and you give up a pressure. Sometimes you lose a one-on-one, which you're going to do in this league. Sometimes Lenore Sellers has held the ball too long. And I think part of that is maybe you don't trust the read. Sometimes you're kind of seeing ghost when you're getting rid of the ball too early and not letting
Hmm.
the play develop. To his credit, he's been pressured a bunch against LSU. I think he was pressured 65% of his dropbacks. And then other times, Lenore Sellers, who is elite at escaping, holds the ball because he thinks I can make this guy miss, but then you either don't make the guy miss or you make the first one miss, and here comes the second, here comes the third. So
Hmm.
it's kind of been a combination of all those things and something that I think they're going to have to be sharper with against Oklahoma, but are also, frankly, they're going to have to try to scheme their way around some of that. So it'll be interesting to see what their strategy and their plan is this game.
I guess if you were going to say the three keys
Hmm.
to victory for South Carolina, I would honestly for OU, I would sit here and say Mateer can't turn the ball over, right?
Sure.
That would be just the top 100%. Like he's struggled last week, turned the ball over. He's got 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Granted, I will say this that the interceptions against Michigan, um, three of his three three of his first four were on the wide receivers running the wrong routes. He threw it where they were supposed to be. They didn't read the coverage right, and they ran the route, cut it off or didn't cut it off, and all that type of stuff.
Hmm.
So it was on them. He didn't get it. Statistically, it goes against him, but you talk to people around the program that actually know what was supposed to happen on those plays, and they're like, "Nope, that was the receiver's fault." Um, but he still turned the ball over 3 times last week, and it wasn't. It should have been five. He should have had 5 picks. Like he was, it was bad. You got to chalk it up potentially to the injury. He was forcing things that game. When you play in that game, it's hard to explain to people the OU Texas that isn't around it that that game is just so different. The atmosphere is so different. I recommend going to that if that's on your
Hmm.
bucket list. That is a game that I recommend everybody going to. It's hard to explain. That's why Josh Pate calls it the greatest rivalry in college football because in the greatest game of college football because it's the wildest thing you'll ever go to. But I'll chalk it up to that, the injury and just being amped up and the moment just being so big to him, coming back from the injury, all that type of stuff, excuses or whatever. He can't turn the ball over too. They can't let Brian Thomas, right? Um, you can't let oh my gosh, just went blank on the other defensive end.
Dylan Stewart.
Dylan Stewart, man, I just talked about him 2 seconds ago. Dylan Stewart go crazy with their youthful offensive front. I don't know if Derek Simmons, the right tackle, is going to be healthy. He got dinged up, missed the second half of the Texas game. We'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of people that aren't sure if he's going to play or not this weekend. If that's the case, you got a really Backlinko is not a great pass blocker. He's not a great blocker in general. Maybe they go with move some pieces around, get some stronger youthful guys in there. I don't know. Um, You can't let those guys, and then obviously I think Oklahoma has to be able to get Lenore Sellers on the ground. And that was a problem with Arch Manning. Like he would slide out of sacks. I think he probably should have been sacked like 7 or 8 times.
Hmm.
Didn't matter. It's like he had grease on his pants, man. Like he was just they were just falling off him. They sacked him, I think, 2 or 3 times, but it should have been way more than that. They got to be able to get him to the ground. If those things don't happen and Oklahoma has a lot of missed tackles again, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine OU coming out victorious. So that's what I would say. What would be your three things that you look at and say the Gamecocks win if they do this, they lose if they don't do this?
I think a big one is, again, like I could pick out so many things. I think you could say something like protect sellers better, limit explosive plays. Like those are important, but the reality of the situation is, especially with a 1 week turnaround of what we've seen, how we've seen them play so far this year, they're going to have some negative plays. I think Oklahoma's leading the country in tackles for loss. They're up there in sacks.
Yep.
There's going to be some
Facts.
sacks. There's going to be some tackles for loss. You're going to struggle to protect at times. You're going to have some ugly runs. So I kind of build that into my thinking. So I'd take it the other way and say if South Carolina is going to win, they're going to have to create some explosive plays. They're going to have to hit some chunk plays, whether it's in the run game, in the passing game, to be able to move the chains, maybe score on one of those. Downfield passing plays are a big chunk run. We know Oklahoma is super aggressive. And so, can you get into the open field and get past the first, second level of the defense and then have an opportunity to make something happen down the field? And then also, look, there might be in some, hey, we're in 2nd and 12 now. We're in 3rd and 15 now because we just gave up a sack on first or second down. They're going to have to be able to dig themselves out of some of those holes that are inevitably going to be created. So I think explosive plays offensively, that's a big one. Carolina's been kind of overly reliant actually on explosive plays to score. When you look at the Missouri game through the air, when you look at LSU, they only scored one touchdown. It was on an explosive run. For better or worse, really for worse, that's their identity, but they're going to have to do the same thing against Oklahoma. Also think about, defensively for them, they're going to have to put pressure on John Mateer. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the things we both outlined is Carolina has an opportunity to win up front defensively against Oklahoma's offensive front. I think they've got to win that battle, A, to stop the run, and B, to put some more pressure on John Mateer and try to force some mistakes and some negative plays. And then that would go to the third one, which is if you're South Carolina, I don't think you can win this game if you lose the turnover battle. There are instances where you can win the turnover battle. I think they won it last week against LSU and still lost the football game. I don't think that'll be the case here.
Nope.
I think you've got to win the turnover battle. You might need to be, +2, something like that. Oklahoma is going to put so much pressure on you that it's going to be difficult to not turn the ball over offensively. But I think that's going to be key. It's not so bad in some situations if you can move the chains a little bit and punt against Oklahoma. That's maybe not so bad. You'll take that sometimes. Obviously, you're going to have to score some points to win, but those would be my three things. I think you got to win up front defensively, you got to create some explosive plays offensively, and you got to win the turnover margin.
Football is pretty simple, isn't it?
Block and tackle.
Block tackle. Make sure you score some points. You're probably going to win some ball games. Take the ball away every now and then. So
Yep.
pretty simple. Chris, I appreciate you coming on with us. Tell
Yeah,
everybody
man.
where they can find you.
Yeah, check us out on the On3 network, just like you guys, GamecockCentral.com. And I hope everybody who's traveling to Columbia enjoys themselves. If y'all need any recommendations, let me know.
Yeah,
I'll be.
where's some good spots? Stogner told us some good spots to go eat.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I can't remember the places off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
could go back and look. But yeah, where would you recommend?
Well, if you're looking for something upscale, I mean, Hall's Chop House downtown.
Yeah, he talked
You,
about halls. Yeah.
I'm sure he did. A lot of the athletes go there. Um, a certain visiting SEC coach, every time they come to Columbia, Brandon frequents Halls the night before games. So, just saying. Um,
Would that be? Let me guess. Hugh Freeze?
No, because they haven't been. And gosh, has Hugh Freeze ever played a game in Columbia? I don't know. No,
No.
it's Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops, the
Mark
past couple
Stoops.
times has been
Mark
spotted on
Stoops.
Friday nights. The last two trips to Columbia at Halls.
There you go. We know the
Don't,
Stoopsies well around here.
don't know
So
if that has anything to do with anything, but Halls is great. I mean, there's a lot of places. Just hit the Vista area. There's some great spots in there. Go see our friends at Steel Hands Brewing. They also have a distillery in the Vista. Great
awesome.
food, great spirits. They have a brewery out in Casey, which is a short drive from downtown. That's a couple spots that come to mind for me.
What's the best, real quickly, what's the best high school football? Where's that play? Is Rock Hill the best place to go for high school football in South Carolina?
Football City USA is what they call it. Northwestern is really, really good this year. South Point actually won the kind of city rivalry between those two
Hmm.
this year. But there's some great football. I live in the Irmo area out in Columbia, kind of a suburb, and Irmo is really good. They have a freshman wide receiver actually from last year's team who's on South Carolina's team this year, Donovan Murph. And then Dutch Fork under Tom Knotts is perennially one of the best programs. He has, used to coach in Charlotte at Independence High. He has more state titles than I can count. Has won multiple state titles at Dutch Fork. So it's actually some really good ball here in Columbia too.
Gotcha. I know we're gonna go check out Josh Dobson at
Catawba Ridge.
yeah, Catawba Ridge. He's
I
a
saw him play in Rock Hill at Northwestern earlier this year, and he's a heck of a prospect. So that's a good one to
yeah.
check out.
Yeah, he visited OU already, I think a couple of times. So we'll
Yeah,
see how that unfolds. I doubt he'll leave that area, but I know Oklahoma's gonna try to get him out of there somehow,
for
some
good
way.
reason. This is a good
Yeah.
one to try to get.
Yep. Yep. Well, Chris, appreciate you so much, man. Thank you. That's going to do it for this version of OU Insiders Behind Enemy Lines, South Carolina Gamecocks edition. You guys have a blessed day.